So we're going to review or look ahead to the match now, and we are, as ever, here with our friends at Heineken Rugby Club to get member-only benefits such as Heineken Cup Champions tickets, event invites, discount codes, and much more. Join HeinekenRugbyClub.com now. So the plan is to look ahead to the match, and then we'll finish with our quiz. We have our contestants picked out there. Quinny, welcome back.
Thank you, Joe.
We missed you.
I missed you too.
We were...
The crowd didn't, obviously.
Well, they just cheered you, in fairness.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit about Ireland-New Zealand clashes back in the day. I was doing a bit of research earlier on. You came on in June 2002 in the 69th minute against New Zealand, crucial stage of the game. How'd you get on?
Big impact.
Yeah.
60 seconds later, I was sitting back in the same seat I departed. I got a yellow card for brooking Norm Maxwell, the New Zealand second row at the time. And I got the name Nicolas Cage from the movie Gone in 60 Seconds afterwards. I definitely feel a bit inferior sitting beside all these boys, but there was a funny story. I was heartbroken after that because I remember you had a chat with me before we went on tour, and you said, right, Quinny, a couple of years now in and out of the squad, your discipline isn't great, you're not sticking to any game plans, you're a bit wild. You played well this season, Eddie's going to pick you on the tour, 26 players going to New Zealand. And I said, why doesn't Eddie tell me that? And he said, he doesn't want to talk to you, I'm the captain, and I'm going to kind of try and get your head right, we need you, you're important for the tour. And I thought, Jesus, that's brilliant, Woody's giving me the kind of thumbs up here, and I feel maybe I can go and play well there. And unfortunately I got injured in the first warm-up game, and to be fair, he kept me on there was a possibility that I might make the third test, so I thought, he put me on the bench, and I said, this is my impact that Woody was talking about, this is what I'm, try and salvage something for the tour. And then I went on the field, a bit over-enthusiastic, and was sitting back on the bench, and I was there, Jesus, what an impact, and I thought about what you had said to me about getting the discipline right and all, so it was self-destruct button. But when I came off and I was sitting there with my hands like this, and I was saying, Jesus, what am I after doing? This is a disaster. And Rog was just after being taken off for humps. And the game was kind of, he was gutted that he was after being taken off. It was 20 points to 8 at the time. And he went from being unbelievably aggressively mad at being taken off to just going into hysterics, looking at me sitting back in the seat and I was there, you bastard. I said, well, stop laughing at me. And he just kept laughing and laughing and laughing. It just cheered him up anyway, but it didn't do me any good. But that was it, that was my impact.
Did Eddie say anything to you afterwards?
No, he didn't. And Eddie wasn't talking to me. I don't know why he was picking me. I think Woody was the selector at the time, and he thought, Jesus, I can get something out of him. And
he didn't talk to me afterwards.
No.
Because of it.
Yeah, he was blaming you, but he was. I remember kind of hurrying around the dressing room to have the shower and kind of get out of his way and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I was so upset and disappointed and saying, Jesus, this is my chance blown again. And so it went on for the night, and he called me when we went to the reception. He called me off the bus. I was getting off the bus, and he was he got so angry with me, there was no words coming out. He was trying to say stuff to me, and then he just said, "Just get out of my face." He said like that, and we went in and had the meal, and it got worse for me then. I was just depressed and big long face, and all the boys were coming up to me saying, "Look, it's done, it's over, cheer up a bit." And I was sitting in a nightclub at around 2:30 in the morning drinking tequila, and Eddie started to feel sorry for me at that stage. So I said, Jesus, I must look miserable at this stage. He even came over to me and said, look, it's done. But anyway, he didn't pick me for another year after that, so he didn't really forgive me.
Well, you got in for the World Cup then?
Yeah, but he didn't speak to me for the whole year, and Nilo was the assistant coach, and Nilo, we went on tour remember we went to Tonga and Samoa.
Woody came on that tour.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was
and
a great tour.
I got picked against Australia and Perth, but Eddie still wasn't speaking to me at all, so I'd meet him in the lift, and he'd just ignore me, just the two of us, and...
I remember on that tour, we were starting pods of 4, we were training, we were playing in pods of 4. It's very simple. You knew who your pot of 4 was. You stayed in it. You went around the corner, or you did whatever. Quinny could not stay in the pot of four. Like, I mean, Quinlan wants to play out half, so the thought of staying in the pot, and it drove Eddie.
Nilo came up to me in that tour and he said, Jesus Christ, he said, like, you're creating a awful grief here. Like, so the message would come from Nilo, from Eddie to Nilo to me, and Nilo would kind of have to give me the bollocking, if you like, and about not sticking to the game plan. But he picked me a few times, and then obviously the World Cup, I got picked for the World Cup. And when I scored a try against Argentina, he still wasn't speaking to me up to that game. I mean, he'd salute me, but no chat or no small chat. And then after I scored the try and we won the match, I came back and I swear to God, he nearly dislocated my other shoulder, jumping up at me, like, and that was it. Then it was like we kind of crossed the line a little bit. But
were there many he wasn't speaking to in the squad, or was it just you?
No, it was just me, and I don't blame. I don't blame him. I blame myself. Like, it was like Paul said, just concentration, sticking to game plans and stuff. And I did feel at times I could play out half. Yeah. But he was a good coach. Eddie was super coach now, to be fair, and he was around that time developing a different type of structure from the way we were used to playing, like playing a wide structure and stuff like that.
So why wouldn't you stick to it then?
I would some of the times, but other times I'd want to get in a position to try and get the ball myself and try and, I don't know, that was it really. And but he was a super coach, and in fairness, he was developing a real kind of more attacking structure there.
We have our 3 questions with Sue down the back of the room. Sue?
Hi, how are you? Okay, we have Jim from Scaries first. Do you want to come over here so people can see you? And you can ask a
I'd just like to ask the entire panel, but having listened to Paul early on talking about the line-out, in the current Irish setup, do you think the Irish line-out functions best when Devon Toner plays?
Brian? It probably does, because he's doing it a long time. He's doing that job a long time, calling lineouts. The lineout in Leinster will be similar to the Irish lineout. So he's doing it a long time, and he's one of the best in the world at it. So I know they struggled a little bit at the start last week, but it's very rare the Irish lineout struggles. They generally have an excellent lineout. You will have bad days or bad halves, and they did solve it. It probably was solved by him coming on at half time. And like when I played with Dev, it was incredible. I'd be a good lifter, and Cian Healy from the front would be an incredible lifter. And if ever I was struggling, you know, you could just be guaranteed to win it with Dev, with his height. So yeah, I do think he is, and that's no insult to Ian Henderson. He's only kind of starting on the journey, I think, of calling lineouts. He's very good at it, but Dev is very, very experienced at it.
What's your second row for Saturday if you're calling it?
Oh, God. It depends on what the rest of the team is, really, because...
What's your second row for Saturday if you're...
I think I played Dave because, you know, people think he's just a line-out jumper. He's brilliant hands for a second row. All that stuff that Brodie Rotelic does, you know, in the middle of the pod, Dev can do all that stuff as well. Ireland don't really play that way, but he could do it with ease. And the line-out is so important. You know, winning, you know, when a team kicks you down into the corner, which happens rarely when Rob Kearney plays because he covers everything so well, but getting out of your own half, winning line-outs, being able to clear, winning line-outs in the opposition half when you're, you know, when you do get those few cracks is so important. So I think just his experience, he's just further down the track than everyone else when it comes to calling a line-out and running a line-out.
With James Ryan?
Yeah, with James Ryan, I think you have to play him. He's incredible.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, Sue.
This is JJ from Tala.
How you doing, lads? Just a quick one. I'm presuming a lot of you know who's the starting 23 for New Zealand on Saturday. Just a guess. Who do you think Ireland's biggest threat is against Ireland on Saturday?
Justin, do you want to take that?
Someone's going to have to translate it for me first. I got half of it, I think.
That was JJ's big moment, you know. That's it. He just shot it
know,
down. That was his big moment to ask the question.
It's totally not his fault. It's my ear. I sometimes struggle to pick up the heavy accent.
Who's New Zealand's biggest threat from an Irish point of view on Saturday?
Okay. Look, I certainly think that across the board, Ireland are just so much better balanced team in general. To single one player out would be unfair because what the strength in Ireland's recent success has been.
Sorry, we'll go for a third time.
Someone translate for Joe.
Who on the New Zealand 23?
Oh, the New Zealand 23.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, right. I'm so sorry, mate. Hang on.
Do you want to give one to JJ as well?
I'll sort you out later, JJ. Look, you mentioned Brodie Retallick. He's phenomenal, and I think the work that he does, particularly in the middle of the field, a lot of the noticeable things he does, people go, wow, that guy can play, but it's the unnoticeable things that help the team function as well, the way he cleans rucks, the way he hits people, and the way that he hurts people in the tackle. He's the type of player I think that the All Blacks this weekend really need to step up because their game plan needs to evolve. They couldn't get it going last week in the wet, but when I say that, basically when they get Brodie Retallick into the game, he becomes a threat with the ball, without it, when he's carrying, when he's used as a decoy, but he's also got a skill set that they can open the wide channels up because when he looks like he's going to carry, he looks like he's going to tip, he's got the ability just to pivot and throw a left to right pass without thinking about it to a back who's punching onto it. So, yeah, for me, Retallick is up for a big game.
Yeah, neither of Retallick or Whitelock played when we beat them
Chicago
2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so they're a big part of what New Zealand do.
And they were back the following game in Dublin then, weren't they? From memory, I think they both
One of them was back.
One of them was, okay.
Whitelock was back, yeah.
Right.
Retallick didn't play that one in Dublin.
And we saw what he was like in Twickenham, so he's in good form. We're going to take one more question from the crowd, Sue, for now.
Yeah, last one is Martin from Lisgould.
Hello. In light of the fixture at the weekend, I'd like to ask the panel, who decides on where Ireland's response to the haka, that they stand for the haka? I'd just like to point out, it just occurred to me that in a very ionised atmosphere, 5 minutes before the throw-in, or the kick-in, sorry, the empowerment is with the New Zealand team, while the Irish team are just mere spectators.
Okay. Paul, Brian, who might decide? Is it a group thing or captain? Or?
I don't think there's really that much of a conversation had these days. I suppose you have to be respectful. You line up. There's lots of ways different teams have done it. You know, Wales refused the All Blacks a few years ago the option of having the haka. They did the haka inside and then beat them by 50. So, you know, that doesn't always work for you. What happened in the Lions tour, we thought we were being really clever with the thought process behind, the semicircle and leader out with youngest warrior and all that, and we still got trounced in that game. So ultimately, I think it's being respectful, but then trying to own the time afterwards. I think Australia were the first team to do that they went off and did, tackle shield drills where we'll play the game when we're ready, not when the All Blacks have finished, and just take a little bit of the sting out of the haka. And now, with time schedules and programming, referees are always trying to hurry the process between the haka up to kick off. But I think it's the you can't start the game without both teams. So ultimately, the opposition have the choice of taking as long as they want, and if it runs a minute or 2 minutes over the allotted time, well, so be it. People are sitting there, ready to go. People aren't going to move from their seats at home either.
No, it's true. Justin, from an opposition point of view, I mean, you've been on the other side of it. What's the best thing for an opposition to do when they face the haka? Brian's talking about trying to take the sting out of it afterwards.
Basically, again, which is great to hear, respect what the All Blacks are doing, but get ready to kick off straight away. No, honestly, you watch the All Blacks at the weekend, they need to take the time. Like, it is such an energy-sapping thing that they go away and they'll get in a group and they need to take a couple of minutes. They're all drinking water, they're trying to sort of rethink about, rugby, the haka's gone, think about the kick-off. If the opposition is standing there and the referee's going, come on, let's go, put the water away, we're ready to start. That would be a great response, because the All Blacks are actually, it's not the opposition who are trying to regroup, the All Blacks are trying to regroup and refocus and as he said, there's not been a ball kicked off yet, and there's been no exchange in terms of the game itself.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
There you go, Brian. You're completely wrong.
There you go. don't know how I never managed to beat them.
That's interesting. I mean, I never actually thought about it from that point
Yeah,
of view.
just watch it at the
Yeah.
weekend. You watch. I know a lot of people tend to watch the haka and then they know there's a bit of period of time before the game kicks off. But watch what the All Blacks do. They go away, they get together, and they're all drinking water and recomposing themselves to get to start. So just have a bit of a focus on that, and hopefully what I'm telling you is not wrong. and if it is, you can find me in Dublin in Temple Bar on Saturday night somewhere, and I'll somehow try and justify it.
There's a couple of really interesting subplots to this game. So it's 1 versus 2. The World Cup is looming as well, and then there's Joe Schmidt's future, which we're maybe more concerned with than most. Is Schmidt being talked about a lot in rugby circles over there? Because I could be wrong on this, but I was reading during the week. So basically, any New Zealand coach has gone through the club system in New Zealand first. No one's kind of skipped that part. I could be wrong on that, but certainly in recent times, that's been the way. Is there a chance Schmidt will be offered the All Blacks job?
Well, he's already done that before he left, so
okay, so that'll count.
That cancels that out, and obviously, if you weren't aware, All Black coaches in recent times, Wayne Smith, Graham Henry, Steve Hansen, have all done the same thing. They've coached internationally here, and they've gone straight back into the All Black system. So there'll be no requirements for Joe Schmidt, should he want to go back and coach the All Blacks, to do anything bar coach the All Blacks.
Okay.
It's not being talked about as much as what it is here in New Zealand, simply because the current coaches are through until the end of the next World Cup. So there's not been as much conversation about it, but I know that it's a pretty poignant point here, and rightly so. He's a world-class coach, and he's highly sought after. And I would imagine at the moment, the way Ireland's going, you wouldn't want to lose him, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's going to decide at the end of this month, really. He's going to make an announcement. He probably has made up his mind at this stage, would you all think?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I'd say, he doesn't do a whole lot of things by flip at the moment or flip for a coin. He's incredibly measured in everything he does.
Yeah. Paul and I were just talking about it at the break. Like, the IRFU really have to make him an offer that he cannot refuse and break the bank for, because he's shown it in Leinster, he's shown it with Ireland that he delivers. Huh?
20 in the bank after yesterday, or
7
days ago.
Yeah.
So
They
Newlands
just
Cross.
saw land or whatever.
Yeah, Newlands Cross.
So, I don't know what France or what England or what, you can be sure that my understanding is the All Black post isn't as lucrative as the likes of what Eddie Jones or indeed what Joe is on currently with the IRFU, what's being touted as those numbers. So I think no reason for them not to go big on it, because he's a coach, yes, but I'm sure he likes money too. So he's human, sure. And we all, would you like more or less? More, please. So
he's a brilliant coach of the Irish team, but I think he has a big effect down through the provinces as well, what they do, and I think coaching in Ireland has rocketed in the last number of years, and I know that we have always had very good coaches, and we would have very good coaches whether he was here or not, but he's definitely influenced a lot of people and created and improved a lot of coaches as well. It's just not the effect he has with the Irish team. So he's a vital part of Ireland's improvement in the world rankings and in every part of rugby.
Yeah.
I've been really inspired actually by Paul O'Connell. I was listening earlier on up in the Heineken box. If things weren't to go very well with my television career, which they could very well not do after tonight's show, that I wouldn't mind dipping my toe into coaching, to be perfectly honest, in France, and go over there and see how it goes and whether I like it, and if I do well. Because if I don't, who gives a shit? Because it's just the French.
It sounded a bit like that, didn't it?
Paul, would you care to comment?
Earlier than we thought, if I'm engulfed in those comments in the media tomorrow.
Would you care to comment?
It was all in jest, of course.
Yeah.
Too late.
They'll leave out that bit.
We will. We'll cut that out for you. There is a sense, I mean, we'll move off this because I suppose we're just speculating ultimately and we'll talk about the game. But there is a kind of sense, Keith, the wind is blowing towards this sense he's going. There was the strategic review about 2 weeks ago, and you could almost surmise the theme of that as being it's about more than one man. And even today, Philip Brown, the RFU chief executive, is talking about Farrell and Lancaster, and he's saying they're both hugely impressive. You only have to hear what the Leinster players say about Stewart, what the Irish players and Lions players say about Andy. So whoever has either of them in the setup is very fortunate.
I don't know if that's necessarily the wins point in that way.
Do you not think so?
Rather than good management and hedging your bets. Because if you say, no, we absolutely want to have him and keep him, and he goes, what happens to the other guys behind him? That it was just one man, or and he is and has been the most important guy for it, but he isn't the only one. And it's the right way to do it. I mean, sometimes we get frustrated because we don't get a straight answer, but the reason you don't get a straight answer is because there's many balls up in the air and they're trying to make certain that they get something right at the end of it, whatever that right is. And for them, we can all pin our colours to the mast. They can't.
Fair point. Alan, the game on Saturday, how big a chance are you giving Ireland at this point?
Yeah, I'm giving them a good chance. I think they certainly have the mentality and the ability. Paul is admiring the way I'm crossing the leg again. Can we all cross our legs, maybe? Could we get the audience to cross their legs there as well, like this?
Someone give him a Granny Smith.
Funnily enough, I can't do it this way because my hip is too tight here, so I can't do. You'll never see the left leg across, just in case you're.
He never stops whinging, does he? Jesus Christ.
Right,
answer the question, will you?
Yeah. So yeah, we have a good chance. I think the standard they're at, and I think they'll improve a huge amount from last week. It was, in some sense, it was a perfect performance last week because we spoke about it earlier in the week how scrappy it was and that they were certainly 5 or 10% off what they need to be, maybe more. And I think they will improve a lot this week. So. No Conor Murray, no Robbie Henshaw's a loss. I think there's no doubt about that.
Who will play at 9?
Before last week, I thought it would be Marmion if Murray wasn't fit, but I thought Luke McGrath was superb when he came on. His relationship with Sexton as well. But I sense that Marmion Joe has a lot of trust in Marmion as well, so he could go with him. But I think Luke McGrath maybe because of that performance last week and. He was brilliant. It's a little bit easier coming off the bench when you have a poor first half performance. I'm sure they reviewed it at half time and there was going to be a reaction and they were much better from an intensity point of view and execution the second half. So they've got to take it up a couple of levels again because you won't catch New Zealand. They won't shock them this week. They're going to be ready. They're going to be coming to Dublin. Bowden Barrett spoke about it today. It was on the papers about they're not expecting. They're expecting surprises and they're ready for Ireland. So it should be a great match. But I think people say, will they win? They're capable of winning, but they've got to get a big performance, and I think they're capable of that. So it'll be close, I think.
Paul, if we assume for a second the weather conditions will be vaguely normal, what will the Irish game plan be? So how are they going to try and beat the All Blacks on Saturday?
I don't think it'd be. One thing Ireland don't do is they don't change a lot. They evolve over time, but they just try and be better at what they're doing all the time. So, certainly when Conor Murray plays and our line-up ticks over really well in our scrum, we exit really well. We don't give a lot of teams a lot of opportunities in our half of the pitch, and recently we've started exiting a lot by running it out. We don't just kick it out. So we're very good at that part of the pitch, and that's actually probably one of the most important parts of rugby now is I know it's an old cliche, but playing in the right part of the pitch, but a team that knows how to do that, how to get out of their own half is really important. Ireland will always have a few little trick plays up their sleeve that they'll have a crack and try and get some, they've probably seen one or two things, they'll execute those. They're great in the opposition 22 to keep it quite simple. And I don't think it'll change from that. Like in the game in Chicago, I think New Zealand's line-out really struggled. Yeah. I think they gave away 7 of the first 8 penalties, and they conceded a maul off a try off a maul, and then a try off a maul, a phase after the maul or something. I just don't think that will happen in this game. So those leg ups that we got in Chicago won't happen. So we're going to have to create something and score tries. And that's when Ireland started. If you watch Ireland play now, they kick to the corner a lot. They don't always take their kicks at goal. And that's when they started doing that, was against New Zealand, because they knew you needed to score tries and accumulate points. So I don't know if I answered the question there.
No, you
but, but I don't think they'll do a lot different.
Yeah.
They'll try and do everything they're doing better. And that works. That works for Ireland. I think when teams try and reinvent themselves or try and do something completely different to try and beat New Zealand, you lose your way.
Yeah, I think there's a realization that they're going to need to score a lot of tries. Was it 5 tries in Chicago when they won?
Yeah.
It's very rare that New Zealand are kept to scoring 16 points as England did, and you think about that English defensive display and the conditions and all those other factors. So realistically, you're thinking, New Zealand are going to score minimum somewhere 20 to 25 points. You got to score more than that. So I like the attacking philosophy of Ireland now. I think there's a lot. People get frustrated with Ireland trying to play too much in their own quarters, but there's a lot of thinking behind that, in that teams will throw 3 and 4 players in the backfield. So where's the space in the front line? If you kick loosely, or if you don't get your accuracy 100% and kick to 4 good attacking players, New Zealand love broken field running, so you cannot do that. So you've got to play until you suck those players up, and then you have the opportunity of going kick contest as well. So it's not just they like holding on to the ball, they're a possession team. Far from it. They're trying to manipulate the defence into doing something they don't want to, and then for them to counteract it. And you'll watch, rarely do, only under massive pressure do they kick out. They'll kick to contest the whole time. Johnny Sexton, that's where Conor Murray really comes into his own, because he's one of the best box kickers in the world. So there is more onus on Johnny Sexton to have a better kicking game than he had last weekend. But I think that is a huge, huge component of how games are won and lost.
The point was made after Saturday when the line-out malfunctioned, or it was made in Australia in June when Australia didn't kick into touch as much as maybe other teams, that so much of Ireland's best attacking play comes off a line-out. And if you take that away from Ireland, they can run out of ideas a bit more quickly than we'd like. Is that a fair criticism?
Maybe that's why Wales have had a lot of success against Ireland in big games. You look over the course of the last 10 years, it's really only the Grand Slam game that we've gotten one over them. Yeah, you could maybe mention that this year's Grand Slam game, or the game on the process to winning the Grand Slam. But Wales don't kick out. Yeah. It's not in their policy, and they play. That's a rule against all opposition, because they just fancy themselves from a fitness perspective and in phase play and broken play, that they like it a lot more, and that their kick chase and their hunger to get after the opposition on long kicks, they'll smother them and they'll cover that ground more than any other side will. So different teams play with different mentality, and we have our own idiosyncrasies as well that we like going to. Joe will still have the same power plays. New Zealand will have done a bit of study on us this week, but Joe will have manipulated slightly because he'll have seen Ione doing something, or he'll see Barrett, sitting back off a 5-man, or there'll be something there. As he does for every single side.
Is it a fair criticism of Ireland? No team's perfect. We can't be perfect at everything. If there was a weakness in the attack, might that be it, that we're too reliant on line-out, or no?
I don't think... I'm not very conscious of it anymore. Okay. Because I think our phase play has evolved massively, and the ability to, when we break down, to get back into a shape that's able to then pull a defence apart, or give yourself a chance of getting a half break, you're getting in behind, and then I think you've got clever enough players that just play heads up. The structure kind of goes out the window depending on the severity of the break. If you get well in behind, it's proper heads up rugby. Then if you make a half break, you might have some sort of basic structure to be able to work off. But then Johnny Sexton, because he's so good, can pick 3 different passes. So there's been a massive, since my time in retirement, in the last 4 years, I had a year with Joe at Ireland, and the evolution of this team and the way they want to play the game and the variety of ways in which they can do it has come on leaps and bounds, and that's why. It's testament to them remaining in number 2 in the world for a concerted period of time. That's because they're very, very good at lots of aspects of the game.
Yeah. Keith?
What?
Dear.
Is it the line? Is it the line out?
No. Just generally.
No.
Give us your thoughts. That's very childish. Very
I know. Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe. But I was talking about it last week and seeing whether we were in a good space. I think we're permanently in a good space, and I think we can get to the point of where Ireland can win at the weekend, even though we are missing Conor Murray and Henshaw. For me, Murray obviously is that big one because he takes an awful lot of pressure off Sexton, and there's a sharing of some of the roles there, especially on the exit actually, and especially on getting the ball back in around the halfway line. And an awful lot good that happened in Chicago happened around Murray at that stage. But I think since that period of time, there seems to be more players that are good enough to play at that level, and they may not be at his level, but that the team responds to that as well, that we're not actually we're so utterly reliant on one player anymore or two players anymore. And I think that would have been the sort of charge leveled at Irish teams a lot of the time, that if we didn't have the top players on the field, you weren't going to get anywhere near it. I feel as if we've matured a little bit more in there. I think it would be huge for this team with the players that are out to be able to get a win. But an awful lot of those players that are on the field have tasted this before, and none of us have, and so they know what it is and they know what it takes to beat Ireland. So I don't think that they'll be going out fearing it. I think they won't be worrying about the fact that Conor isn't wearing a 9 jersey. They'll be looking at their 9, be it Marmion or McGrath, and saying he has the capacity to do his game and do it really, really well, and play it from that perspective. But I have a little bit of confidence with it because I thought we were poor last week. Yeah. And I don't expect us to have 2 poor games in the trot. And New Zealand were the same, so I could be arguing both sides of that argument. But I'm looking at this weekend with a level of encouragement and thinking that this is a really good one. And one of the elements for Ireland is we still haven't won in Lansdowne. We haven't won on Ireland soil. And I just wonder whether that's something else, that can just work against New Zealand or work against Ireland, because New Zealand were poor last week. I thought England put them out of kilter very, very quickly, and that's about as poor a first 20 minutes as I've ever seen from an All-Black team. I know they'll try and come back to do that, but there's a bit of a template for Ireland if they can knock them out of their stride.
Justin, if we kind of park the McCaw, Carter generation, how highly regarded is this current batch as they head to the World Cup next year? Obviously, this game at the weekend is very important. But are there worries? Are on New Zealand radio? Is there kind of deficiencies being pointed out and nitpicking, or is there a sense that this side's really, really good?
The side, I think, is very good. It's well led. The infrastructure was there with McCaw and Carter, because the lieutenants were learning under them, and the likes of Kieran Reid and Bowden Barrett have stepped into that. Whitelock, you've got, I think, 4 guys in the team at the moment have played over 100 tests. So there's plenty of experience there that have been to World Cups that won't be daunted by them. That they get into these big games where they're pressure games against number 2 in the world, and they can cope with that. If I was perfectly honest, they haven't hit their straps yet. They haven't found their shape, and when they do, they'll be much better for it. They've been rattled since the Lions series defensively, and they've been seen to be vulnerable. They haven't coped with it at times, the out-turn defence I'm talking about, and when you shut the outside channel for this All Black team off, it can have an effect on them. And England were aggressive in their defence last week, and I agree with you. I actually thought they've not played that poorly for 30 minutes. They really looked lost into what they were going to be able to do to try and control what England were doing to them. So they frighteningly are better than what they are now, and at the moment that's still good enough for them to be winning the majority of test matches they're playing. And when they get in rhythm and get in sync and figure it all out, they're going to even be more dangerous, I think. Okay, I've got to get predictions off you because people have homes to go to and we have to keep this thing moving. So you can
start over there first, Joe. You're looking at me, please.
Alan Quinlan, you can give us a final thought and then your prediction. I mean, if you're going for a New Zealand win or Ireland win, even give us a sense of the margin that you're feeling. It's hard to choose now when you got to see the teams, don't you, and see if Ringrose plays at 13. He gives you an extra option at attack. He is playing at 13. Is he? Who else is going to play there?
Well, if he's fit, if he's not, it's
Oh,
Will Addison.
He trained today.
Yeah,
Let's-
so if he plays, right, okay.
Let's assume he's playing.
Oh, let's assume he's playing. I think first, Sean O'Brien, I just want to say about Sean O'Brien, and I think the boys played with him more know him better and probably played longer. I think his injury was heartbreaking as well, and he's a massive loss. He's someone New Zealand speak about. Justin, you've said it before, he has that presence about him. He was brilliant on the line, so he's another loss, and it's heartbreaking for him. I think if Ireland are to win this game, you know, you talk about structures and game plans and all that, they've got to be physical. And that happens, a lot of us up front. If the scrum line-out is right, and, you know, we need our back five really being aggressive, making lots of carries and stopping the likes of Reid, Retallick, Whitelock, those big players that you spoke about. So I think physically, and that's what England did last week really well. They matched that physicality and maybe got ahead of them a bit in that. England missed 39 tackles last week, which is a hell of a number to miss in a game. And still, you know, probably should have won the game. So you're going to be scrambling at times against the All Blacks, and, you know, they've got to just regroup at times. But if they bring that intensity and physicality, and I think they have a real good chance of winning. So what do you want me to say? They're going to win. I think Ireland will win. Yeah, just about.
Keith?
Yeah, I said it last week. I think this could be our time, based on the fact I think New Zealand are a little bit off. And if they don't get back to their level, and if we are absolutely at the top of our game, I think we can win by a couple of points.
Okay. Do you want to shut us down, Justin, here?
Oh, I think it's well set up. I certainly think that the players that we've spoken about that Ireland are missing, that they are crucial players. They're very important players for Ireland, and when you play in this type of test match with this intensity, this expectation level, you need those players. The All Blacks are only missing a couple, Moody, but they can cover their front row pretty well, and Sam Cane, and it would have been debatable whether he was going to command a spot at open side over Artie Sevier anyway. So they're at full strength. They couldn't be stronger, really, the All Blacks. So they'll be all guns blazing. Probably the big thing for me, and you'll all feel it here, and we're talking about it now, is can, for me, Ireland cope with the mental pressure, this expectation that you're all talking about? Because this is what the All Blacks, this is what the All Blacks have to cope with every time they play. They're expected to win, and because of that, they've got to take that weight into the game. And when things don't go well, so if things don't go well for Ireland at the weekend, you'll all go, oh my God, and the crowd will flatten. And the players then have to mentally be strong enough to lift themselves, and the experienced players stand up and deal with that pressure, because it's a really big part of the game. So, look, I certainly think it's going to be tight. I'm worried about it, I won't lie, but I just think the All Blacks haven't shown everything they've got. Their tools are only been sharpened, but they've not used all of them just yet. And I'll pick them to sneak home, but it won't be by many, half a dozen points.
Okay. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have been not very confident, but I would have been relatively confident had the three big names been playing, Henshaw, Sean O'Brien and Conor Murray, particularly, you know, I suppose when you play with Murray, getting out of your own half, when you become a coach, you realise how important that part of the game is, and he plays such a big role in that, and he scores tries as well. Yeah. You know, he scored a great try in Chicago, but they're generally actually really short-range tries. He's a great eye for a half-a-metre try, which you did.
Against them, he scored four tries against New Zealand.
You had a good 6-month period where you scored a load of those.
That was when I was carrying
tries.
that weight.
And that's really important, the ability to get there. So I would have been very confident. One thing with the mental pressure, like this is the most consistent Irish team of all time, and they are really well equipped to handle all the mental pressure. They're better than any other Irish team at that, and so I pick Ireland, but I'm not as confident as I was when I was hoping that the three big boys were going to be playing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Final word to you.
Yeah, I'd reiterate all those sentiments. I was very bullish last week, and now just off the back of a poor performance from New Zealand, and not a great performance from ourselves. You'd imagine there'll be a double reaction But interesting just listening to Steve Hansen's comments about, this being the big one against two, see who the best team in the world is. That's not a message for Ireland. That's a message for his own charges that, that people are talking about these guys being the best team in the world. It's a bit of come off it. Let's lay down a marker a year out to see what the gap between 1 and 2 in the world is.
Is there a sense in New Zealand, let's slap these Irish lads down, they're getting ideas above their station, as Brian's sort of saying? Steve Hansen's alluded to it.
No, the respect's there, and the mountain has been conquered. They know they can do it. They'll believe now that was never there, but the belief is there, so that's infectious. He's talking it up because he knows how important it is, and there's nothing there but a real genuine contest and a team that can beat you. So that's inspiration to play well yourself, because if you're slightly off, you know that there's a team capable in the world that can knock you off. So yeah, he's just pumping it up because it is what it is. It's a massive game.
He seems to be pumping up a few bit, like as he said, the England game was bigger than the Lions test, actually. So I don't know, is he trying to give a tired group a last oomph for the last kind of few games of the season, or is that just Hansen's way, or what he's thinking?
I think the English have been reminding the All Blacks quite regularly that this was going to be a game that they were looking forward to, that there was 4 years between test matches, and he was very well aware that regardless of their injuries, they're going to play well. They're well coached. He knows the All Blacks very well, and he came up with a pretty good game plan for the majority of that test match. So I think he recognises that the rest of the world have caught up. I think the All Blacks at one stage a couple of years ago around the World Cup were reasonably comfortably ahead of the rest of the world. I'm not saying that arrogantly. I think they were, and I think the results were showing that. But that gap now is right here, and they have to be very good. Otherwise, these teams are all capable of beating them.
Very lastly then.
I know you're going to wrap.
Yeah.
Just listen to the boys there. Could I change my mind and go for a draw? That'd be okay. Would you mind, Woody?
What you like, Quinny? You've always done what you like.
I lost any bit of confidence I had when I listened to these two over here. But anyway, I'm going for a draw, so Joe, I just want that on record.
Noted. Did you round off by saying you were feeling bullish and you're still
but less so now. Less so,
okay.
yeah. So I think it'll be very close, a couple of points either way. So I could be a crowd favourite, but I'm going to play the bad news, Bobby, and I'm going to say New Zealand to scrape it, just because they know how to get them done in tight games. There you go.
No, it's great to get what you're actually thinking. Thanks so much for that, Alan, Keith, Justin, Paul, Brian. We're going to have our quiz now. Round of applause for the lads there.